Andy Lopez and the Invisible Gardener, from your soul to your soil. Happy New Year, Andy. I'm so happy to see you.
Happy New Year, Michelle. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's raining and I love it.
Yeah, the rain is very good for everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would you like to talk about today?
Um, well, I was going to ask you something, but I'm also going to admit something that is very embarrassing, but I'm just going to say it anyway because we're on
Oh,
your show and I don't know these people.
okay.
I was waiting for you to bring me potato seeds.
Uh-huh.
I was like, God, I really want to grow potatoes so I could grow potatoes and onions and rosemary, those things I love. And I kept waiting. And then I don't know what you said, but you had the little potatoes and you said, oh, you just cut this in half and bury it. And I must have heard that before. But in all the years of late, I've been waiting for potato seeds, thinking, where are the potato seeds? And it's because that's you just plant the potato as the seed, right?
The way it works, right? I went online and I bought different types of different colored potatoes, and guess what they sent me? Little potatoes that you can cut up. So the big ones you can cut up in different slices. You know those little eyes, if you have potato too long, they start growing.
Right.
Right, those are the little eyes. You can cut those out. One big potato, like the russet, can do like 10 little baby potatoes. Plant them and they'll grow. I don't think I've ever seen potato seeds, even though that's entirely possible, but I don't think
Right.
there are.
I guess you don't need them. So you would just take a half a potato or a quarter if it's a russet and plant it.
Right, what
And
I
that
would
will
do,
sprout, or you sprout it first.
no, what I would do is if you really wanted to grow them, you can let them grow a little bit and then they start to grow, little things. You just cut that little piece out. So sometimes a potato will have maybe 10 of those little eyes. Then you have 10 potatoes.
And you plant the little eyes.
Right.
Oh, so you wait for your potato to sprout.
Yeah, you
Those
could do that, or you can just figure it out because you'll see that if you look at a potato, they have those little indents. That's where they are. They're going to grow anyway. So you can cut it based upon where that is. Not too small, but small and like a little chunk. Plant those and they'll grow.
and they grow in a vine, like watermelon or cantaloupe.
No, they grow below ground. They're a vine below ground.
Oh, so you dig them up.
Right.
Like,
So they'll have a plant on top, different flowers and stuff, and then when they start to dry out, that's the time you look underneath, and you can if you get the right size and pull them, put them. You can wait to different stages. Different potatoes have different stages to be picked at, so you'll get to know which ones they are eventually. If you pick them too green too early, it's awful. You can't eat it.
right,
Gene did that. Gilberto went out there and he picked the potatoes and gave it to her. She said, "These aren't ready." And you can't stick them
right.
back in again.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you have some black potatoes, some red potatoes, some purple potatoes. There's like 100 different varieties from around the world. And that's what they do. They send you the little potatoes.
Right. Okay. All right. Now, nitrogen in chemical fertilizers.
Oh, what about it?
Well, when you think of nitrogen, it sounds like a good thing. But I'm the more I delve into your world, the less I know. Um, because I just don't understand why everyone is still using chemical fertilizers. Even as far as Jackson Hole, you see them with the tank spraying. And then I listened to Vandana Shiva, and she talks about they've proven scientifically that nitrogen in the chemical fertilizers will destroy the microbes. Is that
Right.
right? Am I
There are different types of nitrogen, just like there are different types of anything. A long time ago, when I first went to University of Florida and I did agriculture, the teacher says there's no difference between a chemical source of nitrogen and an organic source of nitrogen. I said, no, there is. So we got we got a little battle there, and there is a big difference. The main difference, man-made nitrogen, it's organic, natural nitrogen. It's comes from a animal manure, animal pee, and they call it urine, right? So the chemical version is called urea, based after the name urine. It's called urea, but it's 6400. 6400, whereas nitrogen naturally found from animals is maybe 1% at most. But then it's a mixture of all a bunch of other things, so it's never by itself. So that much nitrogen, it's like cocaine for the plants. It makes them grow really fast, very weak and very susceptible. And yes, it does kill the microbes because the microbes cannot touch that stuff. They don't have any problem with. See, nitrogen, you normally get it from the air too. From the air, you get nitrogen. Plants absorb the nitrogen. Microbes absorb the nitrogen. You need nitrogen to plants to grow, but not this type of nitrogen. This type of nitrogen is very, very bad. Causes a lot of stress, and the plants may look good, but there's no. See, high nitrogen also inhibits the absorption of minerals.
Right.
Right? So plants were getting this high nitrogen. They're growing really big, really fast. Very little minerals. The bugs go whoopee, and that's where you get the diseases and pests. And it kills the microbes left and right. The microbes are not set up to have that kind of nitrogen to eat and to utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It kills the worms. Anything that goes in touch with it sterilizes. It kills it. And on top of that, you have other things added to it. You know, the chemical fertilizer. Chemical fertilizer is a salt. It's a salt. And one of the things I remember early in my youth that the Romans, when they conquered somebody, they would salt the ground. It's the same thing as that in chemical fertilizer. Nothing will grow on it really well. It may look like it'll grow, but you know, it may look good to your untrained eye, but there's no nutrition in it whatsoever.
Right, right. I was just hearing something else about these imported pulses. When someone talks about importing pulses, is that corn?
Um, Not really sure, but I think it's a type of food. You're right. Somewhere
Grain?
along the line, or maybe some type of grain or some type of food. And
She's saying because of the imported pulses into India from Canada and apparently imported, so it's genetically modified. It's not. She
right,
said they're getting uh God, I wish I could quote her, a fraction of the protein. Like and annually now, the Indians are getting tons less protein
that,
because of the imported food, since they're not growing
that
their own food. Because I mean, it's a
exactly,
huge mess.
exactly. In
It's a real mess.
way back when they first came out with genetically modified corn, Monsanto was going to be, we're going to be the good guys. We're going to go to Africa, say, we're going to give them 1,000,000 tons of corn seeds. And they went to Africa, different parts of Africa, and say, here's corn. You can do major crops of corn. Everybody says, oh, great, great, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So that year they had corn everywhere, right? And of course, that was something should have. They knew something was up when the bugs wouldn't eat it. Okay, so
Right.
they were eating the corn, but they were malnutrition. The doctor said, "I don't get it. You have all the corn, and yet you're malnutrition." So he checked. He says, "This corn is crap. You can't. There's no nutritional value." As a matter of fact, it also causes leaky gut. You asked me about leaky gut. That's the number one cause of leaky gut. So the following year, so they had corn. It doesn't produce seeds again. You have to buy the seeds again. So they went back to Monsanto and said, we would like some more corn, please. I said, no, you have to buy it from us now. And fortunately, most of the farmers started to hear about this doctor who said, this corn, you can't eat it. It's totally useless, and you're going to die from malnutrition. And that's what's going on around the world.
I know. I heard someone say, what's the difference between Monsanto and God? God's not playing Monsanto.
Right, right, right.
I mean, it's wild what these people are doing, and these poor farmers. I mean, we all there needs to be like a people's assembly, and Vandana talks about that, and I think it happens in India, but people really need to assemble here in the US and grow a little bit of food for their family. You don't need a yard.
It's a
You
big
can do it
difference.
in containers, and just to show like our children, this is what good food tastes like, a piece of lettuce from your own pot. I mean, it's just how can we get everyone on board to assemble and grow just a little bit of food for themselves? So
Well,
and then, I'm sorry, Andy, you have that refractometer. So
yeah,
everyone can have one of those, a
refractometer.
refractometer,
Yeah,
a refractometer. And then actually people can test their food with that?
well, the refractometer was invented by a scientist who happens to also be a cook. I don't know if I ever told you that, but a refractometer refracts the light. So he invented a refractometer. It's been around for a long time, but he invented a refractometer specifically to test food. And what you really test is like the juice. So it's used in the wine industry for wine. It's used in the beer industry. When you make your own beer, you get a little refractometer because you want to check the sugar level. And in the gardener's world, it's used to check the fruit, the tomato plant, the tomato. I took it one step further. I actually test the plant. You can test the plant. So it's a refractometer measures the level of Brix. Brix is a measurement of sugar.
Brick, Brix?
Brix, right. And it's really interesting the way Mother Nature works because, I don't know if you remember your science class where they talked about photosynthesis and how plant takes sunlight and create their own source of sugar through photosynthesis. See, they make their own sugar. So nature says, okay, you need sugar and you also need minerals. So we're going to make it that the sugar takes the minerals and disperses it throughout your body. That's how the plants get their minerals. The sugar takes it to it. The refractometer gives you an idea how much minerals you have.
Okay, so the refractometer tests the sugar.
Right.
But if it's within the right number, you're getting the proper minerals.
No, you know that it's see part of the problem that people have with using a refractometer is that so many different things could affect the readings. If you certain times of year the Brix level is different. If you wait, for example, for an orange or an apple or any fruit, you wait long enough, it ripens really fast and it gets really, really sweet and rotten. So it depends when you test it also. And so, but it does give you an idea. So, for example, I went to the store the other day and I was going to buy something and I looked at a refractometer. So it was an apple, refractometer of 10. I said, nope, not touching that because I know right off the bat, 10 is incredibly low. It needs to be at 28. You see, so you'll know off the bat, gee, that's not right. But even if it's at 28, doesn't mean you're getting all the trace minerals. You're getting trace minerals, but you don't know if you're getting all. So this guy came up with a rule. It's called a fuzzy rule. I don't know if you ever looked at a refractometer, but basically, when you look through the lens, there's a white area and a black area. There's a lot, and there's like a little ladder, little stripes, and it has the numbers going up. And where the line black and white meet, and it tells you that's the refractometer number. So if it meets the black line and the white line means that 14, it's a refractometer reading of 14. So this guy came up with this really cool rule called the fuzzy rule. If it's a real sharp line, it doesn't have as many trace minerals as if it has a fuzzy. If it was real fuzzy, yeah, you're gonna have lots of trace minerals. It's called the fuzzy line rule.
Oh, do you talk about that in Don't Panic, It's Organic, your book?
Yes, ma'am. I go over the refractometer. I let you look through the lens so you can see how it looks. And by the way, you can buy, I have 4 refractometers. One was given to me maybe in the early 70s. It's $10,000 unit by Leica. He liked what I was talking about. He gave it to me. I said, cool, wow.
Leica.
So, yeah, like the camera folks, right?
Yeah, the German.
Right. So about maybe 15, 20 years ago, I went and bought 3 refractometers. I bought an analog refractometer and a digital. So the analog is basically, but without the digital, can't do it outside. You can't get wet. But the analog is really cool. So I bought 3 of them. The analog I paid $100 for. The digital $300. And there's another one I bought from a beer making company for $25. And they all gave me the same rating.
Oh, good. Good to know for everybody, huh? You don't have to
Right. You
spend a
don't
lot of
need to
money.
spend lots of money on it, right? A $25 unit. You just have to know what it is you're looking for because they have refractometers for so many different things. Now you can have refractometer for your blood to test your blood to see where your blood is at in terms of nutrients and stuff like that. But it's a very, very good, helpful tool. And what's really cool is I started taking measurements of the plant. So I used to go measure the leaves and the flower of the plant. So you have a tomato plant, you basically get a little motor, get a leaf, you get a drop of distilled water, and then you crush, and you get this liquid, you put in that put a drop on the meter, and you look through it. It tells you the level of the plant, which is really cool, or the flower.
Wow.
So I did it on lawns, I did it on roses, I did it on trees. You know me, I'm just wild, crazy guy. Right? And people were going, I've never heard of doing and my friends were gardeners. I've never heard of doing a refractometer on a tree or a branch or any of that stuff. But that's how you can tell. But a good gardener doesn't have to do that. You look and see it's beautiful. It looks great. You don't have to do a reading. So it helps you if you're a beginner. If there's something wrong, this is a good way to test and see what but usually almost 100% of the time it's a trace minerals thing. See? So you don't need a refractometer if you basically know how to cook, so to speak, right?
Right.
Right. And the other thing we were talking about in terms of growing in containers. Yes, you can grow in containers, but you have to be careful because you need to introduce the microbes into the container.
Well, super seaweed.
Super seaweed is not a source of microbes. Super seaweed is a microbiological activator. It's food for the microbes. It has a nice 6 trace minerals, but you can't give that to the plant. You have to give that to the microbe. So when you do a grow in a container,
When you spray clients, sometimes they don't have any soil.
they don't
So
know.
you're feeding, and the plants still show signs of improvement,
Right, because
even
they get
though they're lacking soil. So how do you explain that? If you're super
right,
seed,
right. So it's called foliar feeding. A long time ago, I learned, I said, well, the soil takes such a long time to get together. I mean, it's been going for years and years on some people's property, you can't go overnight and expect it to come back. So it takes a long time. And by the soil, I mean the root systems takes a long time because the soil has to literally become alive. Then it helps the root systems to come back alive again. Then it grows. So in the interim, we spray the leaves. In nature, if you go to a rainforest and you test the leaves, you're going to find microbes on the leaves.
right?
So that's what happens. It's like intravenous feeding. You still got to get your stomach together, but at least you're getting the nutrient. But can't do that forever. That's why it's important we tell our customers, you have to provide this type of compost to the soil. In the interim, we're going to foliar feed you everything. Because
Oh, gotcha.
right.
So how often does someone need to add soil? Once or twice a year? I mean, the situation now is it's like does the desertification. It's like, it gets really like clay around here.
Right.
So
That's
how
because
often
right.
would you add soil to a property to keep it loose?
Right. So what's
Alive?
happening is that there are many conditions that are constantly destroying the soil and removing it. Sand and doesn't come right by, blow everything away. If you don't properly take care of your soil will tend to disappear. Because it depends on the environment you live in. Like we live in a desert environment. You leave it alone, it goes back to being a desert. If you're in the tropical rainforest, it's a little slightly different environment. People living in Costa Rica have lots and lots of soil already. So they should have to keep it alive. Whereas other people don't really have a soil and everything tends to revert back to the way it wants to be. So you're going to have to just constantly be adding soil several times a year on a regular basis because it tends to disappear really fast. It disappears. And on top of that, normally Mother Nature makes soil. You know how it does it by leaves and stuff falling around. So by cleaning those leaves and getting rid of, you're stopping that process also.
Right. So the green bins should be eliminated and just dispersed in the property. You
Right.
mentioned a mulching mower too.
Exactly. That's why I told you to get a mulching mower.
So
You
you just,
Right. And normally when you have leaves and stuff, you should throw them on the lawn. Mulching mower goes right over, mulches it right back down, and that stuff breaks down into soil. Like over by your property, way down the bottom, and all the leaves have been there. You look underneath, it's turning black, it's turning into soil.
right.
Whereas other places where the wind blows through, it's total, and that's not soil. See, one of the things people are confused. Oh, it's in the ground, so it's soil, right? Remember, we have one customer. Hey, this is soil. What else you need? I added a little bit of soil on the tree. The rest of it is like clay, hard clay. It's called substrate. It's not soil. It's what's normally found below the soil, though. You see, microbes don't live in that stuff. They live in soil. So
Mhm.
most people in Southern California and probably where other people live, same scenario. You do not have any soil. Now, if you're lucky to live in a place you got soil, it's a different scenario. You just have to keep it alive. You have to keep adding to it, taking care of it, right? Keep it going.
Okay, so let's say I feel like my front area is dead. We turn the water off for the drought for 6 weeks and let it die. Then you started spraying, and then, but I never added soil. There was no soil. So it
Right.
was like, but then all of a sudden the mushrooms come
Right.
and
Right.
the weeds. So even
So
feeding dead soil can
right. So you do have
activate.
some soil because your grasses and stuff like that are growing in something. They turn into soil when they and the natural process of growth. So you have a small layer of soil up there. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any grass. You wouldn't have anything growing. It should be dead. And when mushrooms come up, that's an indicator that what we're doing. See, one of the things we spray, we actually spray different forms of mushrooms because the mushrooms grow in mycelium. And mycelium, so when you have mushrooms coming up, that's an indication that it's growing mycelium. Mycelium will not grow in totally barren, dead soil. It'll grow on anything. if it grows, that means, yeah, you have this hope that you have
Right.
ability to bring that back. That's why I keep saying plant seeds, because the more things are growing, the root systems go down, they die and they provide more soil.
Right, right. I've just, yeah, the seeds. I've never been confident enough to really do it from seed until recently when you were helping me. I would always use the starters, but I'm seeing like even the bulbs, planting them in somewhat soil. They're everything's coming up. I don't know if it's the rain, but everything is coming up in this semi
Right. So when we go out and spray, the
chunky
very first time
soil.
we spray a place, 99% of the microbes will die. They send me nasty notes. You put us in this place, we're all dead. That 1% will survive in whatever in a little nookie, whatever area there tends to be a little bit of soil. So it becomes like a little island. And every time we go back there, a little more percentage will survive, more and more will survive. But a lot more will survive. It actually had soil, more a bigger layer of soil. Eventually, that's what we have to do on your place and everybody else is have to bring a truckload of some good, rich, healthy soil. It has to be healthy soil, not the stuff with urea in it. See, a lot of these companies, when they make soil, they add urea to their soil. Why do they do that?
Why?
Because it
It
makes
makes it green and grow quick like
there you go. We want instant gratification. We want something boom.
but then there's something wrong. That nitrogen is really dangerous. It's actually destroying the soil.
Exactly right. So the
That's it.
soil is very sterile. It gets sterilized. On top of that, so and not and more confusing too, because you can go to the city now, they'll give you this free soil, which they call soil, but it's not really soil. It's biological waste, right? It's really called. It used to be called sewer sludge, and people said, "I'm not buying that." Right. So now we call they call it they go through various different names to confuse you. Now let's just call it soil, and then a lot of these companies they buy a bunch of different things and they make their own soil. They add urea to it because in the process of making the soil, they want it to cook up and everything. Urea is nitrogen, makes everything go nuts. But
And
then when
that,
you
where do they get the urea come? Is that from animal urine?
no, they make their own urea. They make their own so that's why it's 6400 animal urine. So one of the advantages of having animals, like when we talk about compost, why you want to have a wide range of animals is because there's animal urine in it. A small amount of urea, but it also has tons of other things, the microbes and microorganisms and trace minerals, very, very different than just having urea. Because you buy a fertilizer, it may have like uh what it's the three numbers. You know what the three numbers are?
No.
Nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. That's the three
What's
numbers.
in that's what's in the chemical fertilizers?
So if you look at the fertilizer, you see three numbers, NPK, and that's it. Sometimes they may have iron or copper, and that's it. They don't want a really good fertilizer may have 4 or 5 more trace minerals. You need 90 of them, okay? Whereas an organic fertilizer should have really a lot more of them. Even they won't have 90 in there. You see, because it depends on where you get from. You see a lot of people use alfalfa meal. So again, if the alfalfa was grown organically, it would be rich in trace mineral. If it wasn't, it would be very, very poor. See, so it depends on how they make their organic fertilizer. Nowadays, I'm finding some stuff from some really good companies, which I'm hoping to have them as a guest, and they add mycorrhiza to it. You see, they add mycorrhiza to it. That helps, but
That's
you
good.
still need the living microbes to make it all work. So
Right.
I had a customer, a lady came to me. She says, "I've been growing organically for years. My citrus is dying." Next door neighbor came, added this chemical fertilizer. Boom! What was I doing wrong? Well, didn't have any soil. Chemical fertilizers do not need soil to function. They just inject it right into the plant. Woo! Right? But afterwards, she said, "Oh, now it has this disease, it has this pest, it has this bug because the plant's stressed out." I have a saying: the greater the pest, the greater the stress. No, the greater the stress, the greater the pest.
Hmm.
See, when you're really stressed out, you're going to get attacked by everything.
Right.
Right? See what I mean? And you know that from experience. When human beings are stressed out, everything happens to you.
Right.
Than if you were mellow. So, and what's really weird is that wrote an article a long time ago about the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, you know what they did in the Industrial Revolution? They invented chemical fertilizers.
Right. Well, that's back in the day in the
Right. And so that
chamber.
made everybody started using chemical fertilizer, started using chemical fertilizer. And And so that was the start of the end, because right now the earth is in real, not the earth is in trouble. I tell people, not the earth is in trouble, it's human beings and all living things on the planet is in trouble. The earth would be here afterwards.
Right. The earth is fine. We're the destroyers.
Right, right. And we can't keep eating this junk and not expect us to be healthy. That's why we call it from the soul to the soil. You cannot have a happy soul if your body is sick and dying.
If you don't eat healthy food, you're not going to have a healthy body.
Right,
Junk
exactly
food,
right.
junk
And
body,
so
junk soil, junk body.
and the chemical fertilizer company have so much money. So if you go to a college, I went to a college once. They asked me to give a talk. They were having a problem. And within 5 minutes, I solved their problem. And they said, "But we can't use organic fertilizer because we get all this money for research from the chemical companies. And they even give us the fertilizers. They give us urea. They give us the pesticides. What are we going to do?" See? And then on top of that, they do a bunch of propaganda. They say, you cannot feed the world if you're growing organically. And they're wrong.
Well, we know that's not
You
true.
know that's not true, right? So it's a constant battle between the people with a lot of money. The organic people aren't as wealthy as the chemical people are. And
Well,
Monsanto, for
they're
example,
aspirin and they're
and
all of that.
Monsanto, for example, uses this technology. Here's what's wrong with it. The government should say that technology should be used for the good of all mankind rather than for the good of your corporation. Because see, right now we're going through a process of the world's changing so fast, you cannot grow crops that'll change as fast as the world is changing. You can't do that. But you can genetically modify the crop to do that. The genetic modification is not bad. It's genetically engineered that's bad. So a good gardener like you, for example, if you grow a tomato plant, you really like that. You can take the seeds and grow that again. Well, you just did genetically modify. You just take that. You just genetically modify that tomato plant. You see, there's lots of genetically There was a farmer took this Monsanto to court in Idaho, somewhere like that. And they said, there's nothing wrong with genetically modified food. Look around, everything's genetically modified. The potatoes, the lettuce. And it's true, they are genetically modified. Everything you buy in the store, genetically modified. But they do it in a natural way. Genetically engineered is where you take the genes. So Monsanto came up with, we're going to take Roundup and put it in this gene, and we're going to say it's safe, and you can't, and nothing, it's not going to hurt people, it's not going to hurt the environment. And the reason why we're going to do is we're going to say, well, then we don't have to use Roundup on the plants, and it's safer and better for the environment. And they still say that. Now they say, never mind, because they realize, yes, it hurts the plants, it hurts the animals, and then on top of that, they're using more Roundup than before.
I
So
can't
it's like,
legal. I
yeah.
can't believe that it's still allowed to be used. I mean,
Exactly. So if you go to court and you get sued $40 million because they hurt these people, you think you can't sell that anymore, and you can still sell it. That's how strange these chemical people have a hold on the governments that run the world. People are starving left and right. They're eating more, but what they're eating is crap.
right. But they're
Right.
eating crap.
Right. And then so I was talking to somebody the other day, and he said, "Gee, I don't. It has to be that the virus is affecting me." I says, "Well, the virus will certainly affect you if you keep eating crap. If your body is done for, yes, it's like a bug will go. I'm going to go after that plant, because I can tell that plant's ready to be eaten by me. See." And that's the way it is in nature, right? It's always been that. The fox will go after the sick sheep.
Right.
And we're all sick. Well, those of us are not.
So that's kind of like the virus in a way.
Exactly
The
right.
virus kill the weak.
Exactly. The virus is a wolf, and going,
Right.
oh, I'm going to eat you, and you give off the vibes, the looks, whatever it is that wolf can tell.
Fear in your mind.
Right. It's perfect to be eaten. That's what's going on now. And even the wealthy people are eating not as well. You would think, okay, let them eat cake, right? Well, cake is not good either. See,
Right.
so they're still eating junk. You watch TV, keep eating what junk you're going to eat, but take this pill, right? Go to the doctor, take this flu shot, take this shot, take that shot. I started protesting early when I was young. No, I'm not going to take a flu shot. No, I'm not going to take those things. It's going to weaken my immune system, and something's going to come along and wipe everybody out because you can't even sneeze around anymore. I'd rather get the cold, rather get the virus or whatever, and walk away with it intact rather than be dependent. That's what's going on now. More people are taking so many shots. Look at all the people that are getting the virus again. They already had their shots. They're going to have more and more shots, and they're going to get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And then they go out and eat the junk food. Then they go to the doctor and says, fine, eat the junk food. They're all in on it together, So it's really tough on average. But I have hopes because children are our future, and the children are going. But the children are also being taught, eat this sugar, eat this, eat this, eat this. So that's the process.
They should have gardening and greenery and food growing in the public schools. We shouldn't have to send our kids to a private school so they can learn to eat properly, not bring Ziplocs to school, Ziploc baggies. But the public schools, they don't care. The cafeteria food, all of the junk.
Right.
And so then when everyone's doing it, and you've been doing it one way with a community that's on board, and then these teachers now give Jolly Ranchers to the kids. They come home with blue tongues, wondering why the kids don't sit still.
I have a friend.
You stop giving them the Jolly Rancher.
I have a friend that he was the director for this. He was asked to be a director for this hospital in Rosarita, Mexico. It's
cancer clinic.
Yeah, right. It's a cancer clinic. It's supposed to be. We're going to cure people naturally, organically, safely, and everything. So he invited me to come. I was going down there once a week. So the first thing I did was go through his cleaning. But whatever you can't use these toxic things if you're cleaning. You can't do that. They said okay, and then I told him, okay, here's an idea. Every patient that comes in will get a raised bed, and every patient will start growing their own food. Okay, and then that's what they're going to eat. In terms of fasting, in terms of getting nutrition, they're going to grow their own food, and it works. People will go out, they get a raised bed. Here's some seeds, get going, and the interim will give you some good organic. And the food in the cafeteria was awful. So wait a minute, you want to cure people organically? But look at this stuff. It's totally but it didn't last for long because the owners of the hospital protested. The owner says, no, we want you to, and they said, well, you're not going to have a clinic here to do it naturally because it's just not going to work. If you're surrounded with chemicals, you feed them chemicals, you give them more injection, how is that going to be natural at all? And that's awful. That's what's going on now. And I think it's a consciousness thing, but it's a money thing, right? It really just has to do with money,
Well, I think, like how we saw with certain people think they have the consciousness, but they don't.
They don't. And you can't tell them that. You can't say a word about that.
I remember being in a Waldorf school, and before someone came over to a party, this was during the Woolsey fires, she quickly started separating the garbage quickly and I go, what are you doing? She's like, well, so-and-so's coming over, and and I thought, oh my God, you don't do it for real. You're doing it because
faking it.
And so, and what could you say?
So it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, something you want to do. You
don't
heal
want
the
to
earth.
Judge either.
Right. You heal the earth by one person at a time. One person at a time. And if everybody was to do that, but I also tell people, look, how you vote's important. You need to vote this out. You need to say these chemicals are no good here. These chemicals this is no good. You have to have a voice. You have to say something. Otherwise, the forces that be, which is keep right on doing it. Lots of people out there keep buying more and more land, and they're growing more and more junk than ever and ever before. And they try to shove it down your throat. And if we don't eat it, they'll send it to all the third world countries who will gladly take it. So and we don't actually have a lot of time to be fooling around like this. We really don't.
I know.
We really don't. And so it's a catch-22 because you can go away in the woods and live there by yourself, but everybody else is still doing all the junk and everything around you.
Right.
The air you breathe is full of toxins. The soil is being bombarded with toxins all the time. I wrote an article, How to Kill a Tree. Everybody was upset. But it says these are things you're not supposed to do, which everybody does it. Everybody does those things. I think we did 30 minutes already, don't you
I
think?
think we're good. I think we're good. Next time we'll go into the R, and R's, the five
Cool, the five
R's.
R. Right. I'm glad you
Think,
remember them.
reuse, recycle, redo, replant,
Rethink, replant.
rethink, replant.
Right. I added two R's to it because you want to rethink. Do I really need this?
Right.
Is this any good for my environment? I mean, when you came over the other day, I was so happy. I finally found a source of compostable plastic bags that I could use.
I know. I use those too. They're great. They're really
So
good.
it's all a little. It all starts a little bit at a time. That's what we're here for, to help you grow your own food. Because there's nothing like going out there and picking your own food. Your body goes, Of course,
It's so simple too. It's like I didn't know what I was doing. You just kind of do it and believe that you can.
right. And
And
we're going to talk some more about compost. We're going to talk more about a worm farm, how to do your own worm farm.
right. Oh, do I need to check the worm farm?
I covered it so it wouldn't get rained on because the worms don't
It's been
swim.
raining all day.
Yeah, it's been raining over here all day too. The worms are going to survive as long as it doesn't freeze. And so you folks out there, come to our website, invisiblegardener.com. You see it in the background there. Invisible, then gardener. Somebody says, I can't find your website, which is, we can always spell it wrong. GARDENER and .com.
Buy
Go
the
there.
book. Forget it, your book. Don't Panic, it's organic, and the super seaweed. It's
Right, we have a
helping
bunch of stuff
plants.
up in the store. Sign up for the newsletter, check out the store. The book is called Don't Panic, It's Organic, one of the best books I've ever written. You want to get that book because it shows you what a refractometer is, tells you about microbes, tells you about plants and diseases. Because everybody has a plant who has a disease. What should I do? And they're being taught, let's spray this chemical. No, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. There's a short-term solution and a long-term solution. That's I teach you both. So that's what we're here for. We're going to have some really cool guests coming on more and more throughout the year. Sign up to get the newsletter, keeps you up to date with what's going on. If you have any questions on this show, go up to the website. You can either do the inquiry form or the newsletter. The newsletter has a button on it. You're going to get it really soon. You click on the email. Okay, guys, we'll see you later. We got to go. Take care now, okay?
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.